the Parallax View. We are approaching episode 150 in a couple of weeks. I think this is episode 147. That's quite some episodes, Andrew.
Quite some episodes.
Yeah.
Quite some amazing episodes, I have to say.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I,
So how
and I
you
think
doing, Tom?
as long as Parallax exists as a media hub, we will do this show. I mean, it's just, you and me riffing on some things and keeping the flow going, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
our li- it's our little drawing board. It's a still point in the burning world.
yeah. And riffing on some things that we did, outside of the Parallax View. So one thing that was on my mind this week was the talk that I had with Raoul Eshelman, this German professor, on his book Transcending Postmodernism.
So does he
And
spank metamodernism really hard?
well, I mean, you could say so.
Good,
Um,
good. Let's hear about it.
no, but I mean, I have to preamble, this by saying that his book is a really good academic book about what happens after postmodernism. And so
Mhm.
it's not just about, metamodernism or performatism, but it kind of gives an overview and looks at what are the commonalities after, also for theories, that deal with the epoch after postmodernism. And it's really good because it's like, for my money, the value does not necessarily lie in one particular model, but to have different kinds of models like integral and performatism and metamodernism and digimodernism and cosmomodernism and all these kinds of stuff, and to look where are the common denominators, basically, where are the limits of these particular theories, and what
Osmo metamodernism and Diggy, what the heck is that? Those are two
yeah,
things.
we don't need to it doesn't
We don't
matter.
need to talk about it. Okay.
No, 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 he
Just
deals
another
with.
movements, idea movements in the culture. Got it.
Yeah, it's just approximations of what is happening in culture, right now, basically. And
Hmm.
so there are different theories that claim to be, deal with postmodernity. And so what I found particular in the critique, and I mean, he views metamodernism as a postmodern theory, right?
Hmm.
But the critique, and I found that very interesting because that was also something that I kind of always had the feeling that this is like a weak point, but I never kind of got to the point where I could articulate it. And these kinds of books are always good to, to articulate some things. And what he describes is a kind of error occurring through being lost in translation. So what Vanderecker and Vermeulen, the originators, or one of the originators of metamodernism, did, they were referencing Dutch philosopher Mule, I guess, in framing metamodernism as this oscillation between, enthusiasm and irony, or this new sincerity and irony and all these kinds of things. But
Hmm.
this Dutch philosopher, he got it from Schlegel, this old German philosopher who described modernity that way. So
Oh,
Schlegel described modernity as, quote, an oscillation between enthusiasm and irony, right? So it was, this oscillation is inbuilt in modernity itself, and it continued into postmodernity. And so what happened through, through translation, I guess, was that metamodernists start to attribute enthusiasm to modernity and irony to postmodernity, right?
hmm.
And that metamodernism then is a kind of oscillation. But the issue is that oscillation already happens within modernity and is
It's
not
just
exclusive.
modernity.
Huh?
It's just modernity.
Yeah, it's not nothing
Not
special
this
to.
great new movement. Huh.
Yeah, it's nothing special uh, to modernism and metamodernity, right? And so the issue, as Eshelman describes it, is that it is a kind of heuristic, like this oscillation, and you can apply it to basically everything, like movies and political figures and everything, because it always, on the superficial level, it
Mhm.
always works because
Yeah.
we are embedded in modernism and modernity in a kind of way. So if you say, like, if you use this heuristic and say, oh, that movie is meta
Metamodern.
modern because it oscillates between irony and sincerity, it's just
Mhm.
like it works because it's a staple of modernity itself, right? There's no, if you look into the surface of things, it doesn't have a lot of substance to it.
So what I hear from that is maybe the innovation of modernity is the ability, because I guess pre-modernity is all sincerity, right? There's no irony in pre-modernity, right? Because it's very serious, right? You know, biblical narratives are pretty absolute, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas modernity comes in and brings irony to the table. And humor. So I guess it's just, but I don't think that's really true because humor existed way back. But I think there's always been an oscillation between humor and irony, and that you can find that everywhere in every movement. But I mean, humor, what I'm getting from this is like people are ascribing metamodernism or they're ascribing this irony and humor. We're the guys that can see what's really going on because we're able to see between between the sincerity and the irony. We're able to oscillate back and forth as if the Zen masters weren't doing that in the 8th century or anyway.
exactly. Yeah, 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 exactly. And that's the point. That this it is not an exclusive characteristic to metamodernism. It happened, it happened. It's just, maybe just a staple of life.
Yeah.
I mean, you have, the Janus-faced, mythology about the god Janus, who is like crying and laughing at the same time. And so the two-faced nature of existence itself. And so it's like, yeah, you could take things very seriously, or you can just laugh about it. I mean, that's what, Zorba the Greek is all about. These are what the Greek myths are all about, and it's nothing, particular that, pertains to metamodernism. And I
How
always
to
found
deal
this,
with despair, right?
yeah,
I guess metamodernism is like this is how we deal with despair, as if they've come up with the solution. Just like because I think there's a lot of despair in modernity, so you need irony, right? Like modernity is full of great hopes and despair kind of simultaneously, right?
yeah,
Um, doom and gloom mixed with utopianism
yeah.
um, at the same time. Yeah.
Then the interesting thing, just giving you an example, so there are some internet guys, Twitter guys that, do meta modern film analysis, you could say, and they're looking at the new trailer of the new Superman movie that's coming up, and says, "Oh, that's a new hope and everything." But like, no, I mean, Superman was always about hope. It's like it's new, sincerity and a new, sincere hope or whatever. But that was always kind of the case with Superman. And it's like, as a superficial heuristic, it kind of works, but
Yeah.
not as a proper film analysis. And I always liked, performatism, because it gives you like a very good tool to understand, to approach works of art, be it literature or music or movies or even like architecture, or something like this.
Yeah, I was watching this very interesting interview with Nick Cave. Um, I think with this fashion person, somebody Freud. It's like Lucian Freud's granddaughter. And she has this great podcast where she gets everybody to lie down on the her name is Freud, like her last name. She gets everybody to lie down on a couch like in the psychoanalytical way, and she just asks them questions for an hour as they're lying down on the couch. So the quality of the interview is different than an ordinary interview. It's kind of dreamy and spacey and this kind of thing. And there was a sincere irony in that, in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
But it was very good because she very asked him very intimate questions. It was related to fashion, and he wears a suit every day, right? So he gets up in the morning and he puts on his suit. He doesn't wear anything else but suits. And she was the designer of his suits, like on
Right.
stage and off the stage. And it's like, why does he wear a suit? It's um, because constraints is the main ingredients of creativity, not freedom, right? So the
Right.
more constraints he can have on even his wardrobe, it's like one kind of suit every day. The more free he is to be in his creative process.
Yeah.
Uh, so he puts on a performance when he wakes up in the morning. It's a performance. It's not just when he's on the stage. It's his entire life,
Yeah.
in a way. And that is, I guess, that's sincere irony or something. But because there's this myth of authenticity and there's this myth of freedom being, this is, but the real authenticity is how good is your armor, how good is your mask, how good is your style, you know
Yeah.
it's a question of style. I think Nick Cave he understands that, right? He understands that he's presenting a style to the world.
Right.
And he puts a lot of effort into that, the creation of that style, because it's not about him, it's about his performance to his audience and that kind of thing. So the kind of staginess of the interview made it way more authentic. And also the staginess of Nick Cave makes him there's a sense of humor in his kind of expression. And there was one other thing about him. If you don't mind me rambling on about Nick Cave, who is one of my favorite people in the world. He has this site called the Red Hand Files, and his fans write in messages to him, and one of his ex-wife or ex partner in the Bad Seeds, his band, died recently, and he has this song about her called, "Oh wow, how wonderful she is." And one of the lines was like, and it sounds so unlike Nick Cave. It's like it was like she gets out of bed in advance of her knickers or something like that. Like which is like, and he says this in a poetic way, like she gets out of bed without wearing her underwear. And all these fans were writing us, "This is not very poetic." Why? Or no, panties. He used the word panties. It's like, this is not poetic. This is tacky. Why are you using this in a song line? Why are you doing this? He goes, "Well, you got it. That's why, because I'm outside of the realm of ridiculous seriousness, and I'm in the realm of, boundless play." So
All right. Yeah.
I think he's understood the ritual aspect and and the theatrical aspect and performative aspect. So I don't know if that jives with
Yeah.
performatism.
Obviously, yes.
About performatism, except that the name sounds like
Yeah.
it's
Well.
that kind of view. But
Yeah. Well. Performatism doesn't necessarily refer to being a performer.
oh
It
yeah,
means
but
so. What Eshelman means with the Latin stem is like per form, that there's a transcendental aspect, to overcome the form. Yeah.
oh,
So transcendence, not in a spiritual sense, but in a way of more like emergence. That's a defining characteristic of, well, not only performatism but all you know postmodern theories. So in that sense, it is not performatist in a postmodern sense, like performance art or something.
well,
But I
I
still
mean,
get what you're saying.
it's the same thing in a way. I
Yeah,
mean, there's no
I
difference between performing and life, right? All the world's a stage, as Shakespeare says.
well, I
So,
get what you're saying. There's this anecdote that from Leary. Yeah, I guess I read it in some of Leary's books about Carlos Castaneda, and so apparently maybe you know this anecdote. Leary was at a party and Carlos Castaneda was there, and Carlos Castaneda at that point was always wearing suits,
Uh-huh.
and he was very sharply dressed,
Yeah.
and he was like doing all these weird magic tricks to the annoyance of Timothy Leary, because Timothy Leary was kind of looking forward to meeting this guy who wrote these great books, and
Mhm.
and Carlos Castaneda was making a joke out of annoying, like he was basically trolling people at this party with doing weird things, either being like, sleight of hands or real magic, nobody knows. But it was very annoying to Tim Leary. But I mean, it's like again this idea to have, to choose a very distinct form of clothing, like a
Yeah.
suit, but then that enables you to perform and to give you some, freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And the opposite could be true. Like I know a spiritual master, and when I met him, um, he arrived, in this kind of like, I guess, Tibetan Buddhist center, with very formal things, or the seat for the lama, and all of this sort of religious paraphernalia, and people went to come and see him because he's an incarnation of blah 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 in this lineage, and da 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 da. He arrived on the scene with kind of like crazy hair and big glasses that are kind of tilting, and he was drinking big beers with ice cubes, and he started his talk, telling dirty jokes, and acting completely insane, like just silly. And you know, I really liked this guy, so I stuck around. A lot of people left because they were expecting something very refined and spiritual. And then, as soon as like most of the people in the room had left, he started getting serious, doing real teachings.
right.
So that's sort of the opposite, right? This is a guy who's completely able to work with formality, right? Absolutely, but he breaks all the formalities down and just behaves in this completely wild way.
Yeah.
Um, it's not the hippie wildness, which is just let everything hang out. It's intentional. Um, and that's what's interesting,
Yeah.
when that sort of thing is so the idea is to break down the kind of people's kind of perception of what reality truth is, and so open them up to kind of something more like timeless. And yeah, one of the things I've been thinking about, I'm rambling again today, is I was thinking about philosophers, and I was thinking about thinking. I was thinking about thinking, and I was thinking about the thinking is by nature suffering, right? When we think, we're thinking of the past, or we're like projecting something onto the future, or we're fantasizing, and so this intensity of philosophy is trying to escape from one's own thoughts. And when I was doing the Wim Hof breathing, I noticed like your thoughts go away, right? Your anxiety, your thinking, your projection, you're just in the moment. Or when you go in the cold shower, or when you do this kind of thing, it's like destroying your thoughts. So often the fallacy is like we're trying to build up a bunch of thoughts, or build up an identity, or build things up. But actually the moment we're looking for is really without any kind of a thought whatsoever. It's this non-dual moment, which has no well, thoughts could be there, but they're utterly transparent, and we're not trapped in thinking process.
Well, I mean, and yes, I think I agree in terms of metamodernism and performatism. What's interesting to me in this context is reading a proper, European academic work about philosophy thinking,
Hmm.
and the difference it creates to the heuristics, the metamodern heuristics that's dealt with in the internet, because it's like I sometimes have the feeling when I sift through Facebook, for example, that people don't really know why metamodernism works, and they resort to this oscillation kind of thing, but that's not why metamodernism is a postmodern theory. And again, it's like this idea of transcendence, because what Escherman says is that despite, and I'm coming to your point, despite all the fragmentation of the world, um, what this new epoch kind of enables, this meta-modern epoch or performatist epoch, whatever you want to call it, is that despite all the fragmentation, we find beauty and unity and order and transcendence in a kind of way, where, you know, um, thinking in your terms might stop, and that's raw experience again.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because what
Yeah.
post
Well, it is about transcendence, isn't it? Do you want to finish? Sorry, you look like you're about to
No, no,
finish.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was
No,
going
I
to say
lost my
that.
thought.
I was going to say that that you could go one way. You could go the Zen monk way and empty oneself completely of all thought thinking and have the non-dual experience. You sit for days and you just empty yourself. And there's this emptying process, right? Complete emptiness. But you could also just become a really intense philosopher, and work ideation to death, right? You could just have the maximum amount of ideation. I think the Buddhist philosopher Nargajwana was supposed to, he just deconstructed everything through thought and just thinking, 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 just
Yeah.
intense philosophy. And you arrive at the same place because what you're looking for is the end of being prisoner to mechanical thinking, to your mechanical thought process, because that's and to this that's because that's suffering. you know yeah, most of the things we think is just a form of suffering, right? So that's why it is about transcendence.
Well, I mean, philosophy is jnana yoga.
Yeah, yeah, that's what, yeah, sure.
So, I mean, that is,
Well, most of it, I mean, it's theoretically is Jnana Yoga, but I think people make the mistake of 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 thinking that the process is the goal. Becoming too attached to their theories of metamodernism, whatever it happens to be, becoming extremely attached to their particular cathedral of thinking that they've made, which is
what I guess what just, what I liked, again, coming back to this interview with Eshelman, what I liked were two things, specifically that he's already, that, and he said this before, that he's always pondering and looking and thinking that there's, that the epoch of performatism and metamodernism already has come to an end. And then what he does is play, his banjo and play bluegrass.
hmm hmm
That's
hmm
his thing. I
Oh
found
yeah,
that,
yeah, bluegrass. Oh, he
and
brought his banjo and played bluegrass. Yeah,
I found that very funny, because it's
it's like
like,
that's like Nick Cave's suit in a way, right? It's
right,
taking something archaic or sort of uncool and making it cool, like bringing something from that has almost been laughable, in the culture. Like bluegrass music is a thing, ding, 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 really fast, and it's got a certain form to it. It's very formal, very kind of stylistic, and yet, and the cowboys but actually, there's a guy actually who's an amazing musician who comes from the heavy metal world, and he took up bluegrass. Billy Strings, and he's sort of a long-haired hippie, but he's doing uh, you know avant-garde bluegrass or something, and
yeah,
he's virtuoso. Amazing music, taking this archaic, out of
yeah,
date style and totally reinventing it. Amazing.
yeah.
Um, so
No,
so
I
yeah,
mean that,
I'm a big
yeah.
fan of bluegrass music. It's an amazingly
But I
limited
mean the
form of
idea,
music.
that's that I was, why I was mentioning it. The idea of thinking is to come to an end of thinking
Mm,
and do
mhm.
something artistic or whatever, or have sex
Yeah.
or whatever. It's like, everybody's infatuated with their own theories, you
Yes,
know, and
exactly.
and so to it's like the epistemic humility lies in the ability to see the limits of your chosen model, you know, and to be able to say, like in spiritual terms, neti neti, this is not me, this is just an idea, that's just a model, that's a representation, you know,
Hmm.
and wisdom lies somewhere else, you know.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Hmm.
And I always liked that about him, about Eshelman, because he's not, oh, I mean, he deals with performatism, but he doesn't seem like infatuated. He doesn't need to sell it. You know, it's like, because I always like this. I always like when people, you know, can put on a suit, metaphorically, even if it's an intellectual suit or like a theory, and then put it away again. You know,
Yeah, right.
it's just a thing. You know, it's nothing to get riled up about. You know, there's so many things to be learned, and you know, and then there's the question, you know, that Alexander Bard rose, if the ages of isms, you know, are
Mhm. I was
already
struck by
over.
that as well. Yeah. Hmm.
You know, it's like modernism is over and postmodernism, and every ism is kind of over, and this thinking itself is over. And there's a lot of value in this argument as well.
Yeah, but then again, then he goes back to Zoroastrianism, and I go back to Buddhism, and we go back to an original kind of thing that, like again, a tradition. Like bluegrass is a tradition. Suits are traditional. That's like the way people dress.
Yeah,
It's tradition, right? There's a stupid thing about modernity is that, oh yeah, we can free ourselves from tradition. Absolutely nonsense. You cannot free yourself from traditions. You can reinvent the traditions and you can renew the traditions, but you're always in the stream of tradition. It's outrageous to think that you could be, this sort of John Lennon, imagine there's no tradition
yeah,
idiocy is that's just leads straight to, Chairman Mao, I think, eventually, because if you
yeah.
have so much freedom, then somebody's going to come and try to control everything. And so you need to have intelligent traditions, and streams of tradition to work with, which kind of, I think that they're deeper and older and more powerful than all these sort of trendy theories that arise, in the culture. I mean, maybe that's just because
I mean,
I'm conservative or something, but
The interesting thing, Andrew, there is a very interesting interview between, it's an interview segment between Joe Rogan and Guy Ritchie of all people, right? I
Mhm.
think it's like 5 years ago, or 5 years old or whatever. And so Guy Ritchie talks for 10, 15 minutes about the importance of wearing a suit and what that means. Yeah, because he says, you know, if you take care of your clothing, in form of a suit, that signifies that you take care of dealing with the world in a proper way. And so he lays out, you know, this argument. It's very interesting to listen to this, because, you know, in the wake of this, and you know, seeing this, I was like rethinking, and I was like, okay, so I mean, when I'm here in my place, I can have my, you know, jogging pants on. But I kind of, you know, when since then, when I going out, even if it's for a coffee, you know, it's like I'm putting like not a suit, but I'm trying to be more formal. If it's just, you know, bringing out the trash, because it's like it signifies that I'm taking care of the world in a
Totally.
formal kind of way, and I kind of like that. I don't have the money, the Peterson money, to always wear weird clownish
Yeah, you have
three.
you have to have money to wear suits. That's the thing about suits. You can't wear your suits if you don't have money. So
Yeah, but you can have approximations. You know, it's like it's like it doesn't cost that much to improve clothing, that it goes into the direction of being more formal. And I kind of like that, because it's kind of, you know, it takes care between you and the relationship with the world in a formal way, and it shows that you care about this resonance between you and the world.
yeah, and it probably means you're pretty gay, but I'm not going to talk about that. It just Sorry, Tom. I couldn't help myself. I'm very yeah, I'm I'm from Canada, so it's a very informal
No,
culture,
no,
you
you
know.
still have,
I'm a slob.
wild.
I'm trying to be, more sharp, but I'm still kind of my nature is sort of like sloppy and casual, which is unfortunate. I wish I really would like to be dressed like James Bond every day, but but it's not
No,
me.
but what you're really saying that you guys in Canada just have fur, elk fur that you're running around with,
Yeah, we're wild beings. But the interesting thing also in the Nick Cave interview, like he says, I wake up in the morning and wear a suit. It's all I wear because I like one thing. Does
Yeah,
I don't want to be confused by choice, you know. The other thing we have this chaos of choice in the culture. But and the other thing is he talked about his wife, who is a famous fashion person. She created the Vampire's Wife, and all kinds of royalty wore her dresses. She has this amazing, colorful fashion designer, and he said she's completely, utterly chaotic, right?
right.
And so he's like the order. Everything he does, even though his expression on stage is this sort of wild, wild punk rocker. Everything he does is about order and ritual and he just lives for order, whereas she's
Yeah,
completely chaotic. So they have a kind of a balance between chaos and order
oh, that's
in their
nice. Mm.
relationship, I would say. So that is very interesting. Because if you got too sort of formal and stuffy, then you have to unravel that sometimes. And mm, yeah,
Yeah, but again, I like it. I mean, it's like, I mean, I could certainly improve my wardrobe even more, but I like the idea of the difference between casualness and formalness.
yeah.
Right. And so what are you signifying? Like how do you deal with the phenomena of the world? Is it just do you deal with them in the casual way? And so you and me, we always have this debate about, what is the Canadian mentality? What's the German mentality? Where do we put our boundaries?
Yeah,
And
pretty
and
soon
so
you're going to be shining your big black boots before you go outside of
I'm like, what?
your big black Nazi boots.
Oh, there we go again.
And
Okay.
I'm like the dude going outside in my bathrobe and flip-flops. And
All right, Andrew. Well,
yeah,
okay.
that's a
Um,
dynamic between us. We're
yeah,
like an
no,
old
but
married
yeah,
couple.
but yes, yes. But it's like I think I'm treating the phenomena of my life more formal than you. It's
Mhm.
and it's I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just two different approaches. Like,
Yeah.
and so um
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, like all I ever try to do is ritual. I try to ritualize everything. It's like it's just I can never everything always spills over. I can never quite create an ordered world.
yeah, maybe you should wear a suit.
But I do need order, and I do make order because I'm kind of chaotic by nature. So
I mean, I'm coming to
I
Francis.
impose certain order. I do a certain practices every day, and before when I wake up, when I go to sleep, so I'm very into imposing different rituals and orders, even before this podcast or something like that. You see, there's a candle. I light a candle, and I do various
I
things.
will bring you some boots from Germany, some
I'd like
from
some
Hugo
nice,
Boss,
I'd
and
like
some
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 nice,
nice
huge, big
uniforms. So
black
so you,
boots.
you can impose your new rituals, your new German rituals.
Yeah. The other thing Nick Cave was saying is like he's kind of from the 70s and he was talking about fashion and again it was something I was never very interested in fashion, but I become increasingly interested in it because again, for the reason you're saying, he's saying flare pants, like he had a pair of flare pants and this and like big bottom pants. And the thing he hates in this world is these skinny jeans, like
Yeah.
tight, skinny pants. And he said, no man should ever wear like tight, skinny, tapered pants. Your pants should, you should have a flare and you like have cowboy boots and you're like you walk around like you're walking into a saloon and yeah. So I was like that was something interesting he was
I
talking
mean,
about.
the wisdom, and I don't know where that comes from, but it's a saying that either you should treat all phenomena very easy and very casual, or you should treat them very seriously. You should never do like some medium way in between, but it's like what how do you deal with the world? Do you do it, with a laughing eye? It's like everything kind of flows, like where the hippie is kind of the archetype and the exaggeration, or do you do it in a very, 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 very formal and serious way? And so I think
Mhm.
that's a interesting question, like which lies embedded in beneath the clothing question. How do we deal with the phenomena of the world? Do we treat them like, oh, everything is kind of flowing like Panta Rhei, which is like a valid philosophical approach, and then you stay, conscious of the waves and the water that, of the watery flow of all elements, or do you treat them very, very seriously?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's, a question that everybody should ask themselves, because I think that's a very important question in philosophy and Lebenskunst or Art de Vivre as well. Like how do you construct your life worlds, basically?
Absolutely. Yeah, for me, like probably the ultimate motto would be you're able to do both. You're able to be, like I heard it. Leonard Cohen always used to wear a suit too, but then people would go over to his house and he'd be walking around in his underwear, like half naked. It was like he was comfortable in his body. He wasn't wearing the suit to cover up something. This is also something interesting about like makeup, right? Women's makeup. And I read somebody said that why do you put on makeup? Is it to cover up your beauty, or or to cover up your face, or to bring out the beauty in your face, right? So if you wear makeup to bring out the beauty, that's the good. But if you wear too much makeup just to try to put on a mask because you're afraid of showing your face, you're hiding. So there's a way in which the way in which I think you present you if you can be naked in your suit, that's the ultimate thing. Or if you could wear makeup to, present to not hide yourself, but really show yourself in the full glory of who you are. That's the ideal, right?
Yeah. And I think I like what you say because, I mean, obviously it's the ability to to be serious at one point and be completely serious, and and in other instances be able to completely laugh about a certain phenomenon, not to be attached to a certain style of, but to heighten that what is, and that's kind of what you're saying, I at least what I'm hearing,
Yeah,
and so and to be able, and I think we get muddled up in the in between of things. Either we should take things very serious or we should really laugh about them.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. As Jesus says, God doesn't like the lukewarm types. He
Yeah,
likes
right.
He likes
Right.
the sinners or the saints, but if you're in between, you're kind of lukewarm. You don't have much chance to at least go trans. You talked about transcendence. Transcendence is not um, an option. So I think you have to go against the culture, and then if you go against the culture, but at the same time you have to pay your dues to the culture. It's a weird kind of thing, right?
Right.
If you just drift along with the culture, it just kind of swallows you up. But
Yeah, because if you, I mean, like as an example, I'm just thinking about this. If you like just look at the, either let's say the culture war or let's say the meaning crisis. So in effect, you have two ways of dealing with them. Either you just laugh about this because like in the end, it's like in on a cosmic level, it's not important, right? I
Mhm.
mean, we will all be vanished in 50,000 years anyway, or 100,000 years, which is just a speck, a millisecond of cosmic time, basically. Nobody cares what happened on this area of the Milky Way. You could just laugh about it. Or you take it really, 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 really serious. And then you
Hmm.
do something about it. But I feel like in the whole
It's
in the
both.
whole
It's extremely serious because it is your life. It doesn't matter how insignificant you are. It's still
yeah, so
your
yeah, but this
your
is
life.
but when I look at how people deal with either, the meaning crisis, the meta crisis, or the culture war, they never take it so serious that they do something about it, like really do something about it, and they're not really laughing about it either. So they're like this in between. Yeah, that's bad, but I have to consume my porn anyway.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like it's like yeah, it becomes an enabling sort of depression, right? People
Right.
like their depression because it's a
Yeah.
low level of it doesn't require much real discomfort or faith or anything transcendental, right? It's just, oh yeah, it sucks, right? We're doomed, and it's kind of the doomer mentality. But well, this is another thought I had this morning because I've been doing Wim Hof cold showers, right? So, so in the morning, you feel kind of shitty often in the morning, right? I mean, a lot of people do anyway. You have this kind of, because and then there's the idea of taking a freezing cold shower in the middle of January when it's already really cold out and your house is cold and uh and then people are coughing and sick and like there's no fucking way I'm going to get into that shower and do that, right? It's not possible. Your body, everything in your body is saying I can't do it. I can't do it.
Right.
But you know that if you do it, you're going to feel so much better because it's just going to destroy all of that angst that you have, right? Because it does. It just the cold water just kills the angst, and you feel so much better afterwards. So,
Mm.
so you know that the end point, even though your entire body resists it, so it'd be easier to stay in this depressed kind of unawake, kind of half awake state, and feel bad, and drink 10 coffees, and then go back to sleep or whatever. But
Yeah,
but
well.
then the cold shower is like you have to have faith to take that cold shower, and it's like, and it also, again, it comes back to our thought about it destroys your mechanical, dull, self-loathing thinking processes, all the anxieties you have about this and that. In that moment, that's gone.
All this is also achieved by a great blowjob, Andrew.
Oh, sure, of course.
I
You
prefer
know,
that one.
but you can't have that every morning at 7 o'clock. I mean,
Why not?
who you could, but maybe if you're a Persian king or something and had a harem. But I don't know about your sex life, Tom. But 7 a.m. every morning,
Neither.
if you get a woman
Me
to do
neither.
that for you, okay, let's go. Uh-huh.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but I get what you're saying. So,
Well,
yeah.
pleasure and pain, extreme pleasure and extreme pain, right? It takes away the meaning crisis. It's gone.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Mm.
No, but I think it's like what, in terms of the meaning crisis, the meta crisis, or whatever, it's like it becomes like like an advertising thing. So in the sense that, oh no, there's the meaning crisis, here's my product,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like,
Here's my
no,
retreat. Let's get
that's
together
not
and
how it works.
let's get
That's not
together and whine about the meaning crisis and think about solutions to the meaning crisis. And
Yeah, that's not how it works. That it's either treat it really seriously or don't, or laugh about it. It's like there's really no in between there. And that's
exactly.
and I mean, and that's the whole thing. You can treat it casually as treating clothes, or you wear a suit and you make it mean something, like
Yes.
really mean
What would it
something.
mean for it to mean something? Like, okay, um, again, I've got Jesus on my mind. Please forgive me here, but Jesus told his followers, just leave all your family behind, leave everybody behind, and come and hang out with me in the desert. Who's going to do that? Who's going to leave everything behind, right? There's probably one or two people in the world who would do that, but most of us won't, right? Most of us are,
Well, I mean, a good
But what
example
does
would,
it mean like to really deal with the meaning crisis? What's your level of commitment, right? Of what's your
right.
level of commitment? What is your
Yeah.
real level commitment? Or are you just a philosopher? You want to talk about bang on a new theory and develop a little cult around your theory, right?
Right.
You know,
So Ludwig Wittgenstein, a great philosopher, you know his story, right? And I always found, his life very instructive because he wrote, the Tractatus, and he wrote some other stuff. And then when he became famous, because he came from like a very, very wealthy family, he was fucking rich, right? And then he stopped. He gave away all his money,
Yeah,
and he left his place in Vienna, wherever he was at that point. And then he became a small school teacher, like in the mountains,
yeah,
teaching little kids. And it's like for somebody like who had already had his name and his influence and his recognition to leave all that behind and say, oh no, it's like
yeah.
there's an
He
end
hated
to that.
Oxford. He was basically a monk, and he went to live in that little shack in the uh, in the fjords to write his books. Yeah, yeah. So that's a level of commitment, right? Um, that you need that kind of level of commitment to make a real change in the world. You don't make a change in the world by starting another intellectual community. You
Right.
know, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, that's maybe I'm being cynical, but
No,
oh,
but
another
that's what we're talking. That's not being cynical. That's being what that's what we're talking about. It's not don't do it half-assed. Either laugh about it or be really serious. And then the question is, what does it mean to be really serious about a phenomenon,
yeah, yeah,
like the meta crisis or the culture wars? Like it doesn't mean trolling or writing stupid stuff on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. That doesn't mean engaging in finding a solution for the culture war. That's not it. That's not it. That's
Mhm.
so much more that what we can do when we're treating a phenomenon seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. We need. I mean, we need. But and also, I think there's a fallacy that think about numbers, like about scaling everything, right? We have to scale and we have to wake up everybody and have this start this kind of revolution. Whereas, as you say, Wittgenstein was one guy, and he didn't make a mark by creating a cult around him. He made a mark by leaving the cult of Oxford, or
Right.
by breaking out of the system. Uh-huh. That's how he became kind of probably had something important to say. By breaking away from the system. Yeah.
And I mean, it's like very embedded within Western culture. The question when to act properly. Because, I mean, like, just look at Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
So he was, before the action even begins, he was Strider,
Yeah.
right? And Strider was kind of a clownish, recluse that retained himself from acting in a certain way. So he wasn't treating the state of Middle Earth seriously because he couldn't. He didn't found a good way to act serious and proper in that very situation. So he excused himself, and then he found the moment,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
sprung into action. Then he treated it seriously, and
Timing.
so it's like, and I think there's wisdom in that because we only should act if we can act properly and not
Sure.
you know
Sure. And also inaction is not necessarily passivity if it's a period of gestation where you're just waiting, you're waiting and waiting until the right moment, and you stay on the margins until the right moment to, seize the time. And I think it's a question of knowing yourself. Probably Strider knew where his niche was, where
right.
he belonged in that moment. Um, and many of us are trying to like fix things or change things, fix things, and it never works, right? It's often counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
Even Illich talked about counterproductivity, a new policy that's just to fix something, and then you just make it worse, like
Yeah,
we
but
did
it's
with
also
COVID
hard
or
not to
something.
act
What?
in our Western society because our
Mm-hmm.
Western society so much rests on activity and agency that
Mm-hmm.
to wait to act, to actually find the niche and then to act properly, that takes it's as hard as doing meditation because that's what basically meditation is. You
That's
just,
basically what it is. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's not not jumping on the shiny thing that presents itself, but really understanding the like deep nature of things. I was
yeah,
thinking about again, Nick Cave was his wife. He was talking about his wife, and the interviewer said she under his wife would be able to see, don't trust this guy, right? And before he was just talking to them, she'd have a deep sense of who the person is right away, like this deep, and she would often be very right, or if there's danger, deep sense of there's danger and not to do something or to trust this particular person, and the interviewer said, yeah, she could feel the geology of of the nature of things just in a sixth kind of sense.
yeah.
So I think in a way that is what meditation sort of trains you to do. It trains you to really become extremely um, perceptive to the environment instead of you being extremely kind of like blinkered by whatever is happening.
Yeah, not only that, but I mean, if you treat it seriously, and also that goes is basically a taboo because it enables you to laugh about basically enables you to laugh about every phenomenon because you're not
Hmm.
attached anymore, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, it's like that's nothing that we can talk about in normal discourse because that's, you know, you're not treating it well enough, or it's like that's a horrible incident, but on the most fundamental level, not being attached to the state of things, one should be able to either laugh about it or to treat it seriously. But to able to laugh about certain things, that's tough, socially.
Hmm. Oh, you mean because you're impelled to be extremely serious, like about some things, like there's a sort of superego that
I mean,
wants.
let me exaggerate the argument. Let's say one is able to laugh about what happened in Gaza. That's a no-go.
Oh yeah. Mm.
Right. But I guess from a spiritual point of view, in terms of, non-attachment and the human affair, let's call it. I
Mm.
mean, it's the Janus face thing to cry about a thing and at the same time to laugh about a thing. So how
Yeah,
do we
well, to
navigate
see
that
the
in
horror and the beauty simultaneously in a way, right?
how do we navigate that in context of tragedy,
Yeah.
and horrific incidents? It's like there's not even a language or like how do we talk about these things? Are we able to laugh and cry only about things that are in a tiny corridor of what we deem accepting, or is it something that is able to be applied to the broad experience of human life? To war. It's
Hmm.
like, how do we treat war? Are we able to laugh about this? Are we able? I mean, like, I think like a good comedian like Bill Burr could make a joke now about Nazis, about maybe the Vietnam War, even the Iraq War. I think he's not able to do a joke about the Gaza War yet.
Well, maybe you could. Who knows? Mm. Because I think it's the kind of joke you could make because laughter is sort of involuntary, right? If it's really funny, you can't help yourself but laugh. At the same time, if you could get somebody to laugh about something that horrible, that would be very provocative in terms of, oh, wow, kind of, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like a really good comedian makes you laugh is it makes you laugh despite yourself, despite your good opinion, about a subject, right? And
yeah.
despite your morality uh-huh, or that kind of
Or
thing.
Louis C.K. I mean, they're all making jokes about 9/11 20 years later, so that's okay.
No, I guess, yeah, I guess they're still working within some parameters what's acceptable and what isn't.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean,
You
like,
try to get to the very edge of that, but you can't. There is a line probably, right? Yeah. Mm.
yeah, but
I was.
what I mean is like, it's very hard to so imagine there's a meditator,
Mhm.
going deep, 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 deep into meditation, and then he sees, the human affair from a very, very high macro point of view, right?
Mhm.
And he sees all the intricacies of our daily planetary life, and all the joys and all the pain and all the birth and all the death and all the accidents and all the wars, and I think from that point of view you can laugh about what we're doing here on this planet in its
Mhm.
entirety,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Sure. I had a memory when you were talking. I remember at 9/11, actually. I was living in Montreal and I just fell in love with this girl, and I was like in kind of really happy. I was like in this blissful state of new love, right? Everything was beautiful and wonderful, and I was like I just fallen in love, and it was this blue sky. It was so nice out, and then da 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 da. And then and then you started to get the news about September 11th through the television. People started to talk about, oh my God, oh, this thing happened, and da da da. Did you see what happened? And then we go over to a friend's house, and we didn't have internet then, so we'd go and watch TV at another guy's house because we didn't have a TV, and
Yeah.
look what happened. Oh, this is horrible. And then so this was happening, and I was with my new girlfriend, and then I just kind of forgot that it happened, and I it was a beautiful day, and I was walking down the street, and somebody asked me, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing great." They're like, "What is wrong with you? Do you know what just happened?"
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to be joyful in that moment. I was thinking
Yeah.
about it, like, well, there's always horrors going on in the world. Does that mean I'm never allowed to be joyful ever? Because there's always horror
Well,
going
yeah,
on,
that's the point. Yes.
9/11 is nothing special.
Yeah.
It's like happening every day, to some people. There's people rotting in prison right now, and and they've been there for hundreds of days, and they're starving to death, and they're in utter desolate. The horrors of the world are just, if you open yourself up to them, are just unbearable. But am I allowed to be happy in the face of that? And
Yeah.
but then if when I'm not, then what's the point?
So rejoice, people. Rejoice.
Rejoice, rejoice, you have no choice. Isn't that a song?
Rejoice, rejoice. You have no
You
choice.
have no
That's
choice.
there you go.
Now, again, quoting Nick Cave, we've had enough sorrow. Now is a time of joy. He has a song on his album. It's
Yes.
funny because his new album is very sort of joyful. He still has his dark edge when he writes a song because he's kind of known for being a very this gothic dark kind of thing, and it's kind of weird for him to make a happy song, but again, when his son died, I'm talking a lot about Nick Cave because I saw this interview, but when his son died, he was like, him and his wife were devastated, for months. And then they decided to do something just radical and, have a happy life. That's what he said. Like, okay, we're gonna be happy. We're gonna not break up. We're gonna stay together and have a joyful life. So,
Mm. I think we leave it at that, Andrew.
amen. That's
Amen.
my sermon.
That's it. That's it, folks.